What's up, everyone? Hit that subscribe button because Leonard's story is about rediscovering curiosity when cynicism has taken over. Let me take you to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where this begins. Leonard had been a philosophy professor at the University of Michigan for 23 years. Started teaching at 30, loved it initially, the questions, the debates, the intellectual exploration. Philosophy was about wonder, about interrogating assumptions, about never settling for easy answers. And Leonard had been passionate about that. Had inspired countless students. Had published papers that mattered. Had built a career around curiosity. But by 53, Leonard was exhausted. Not physically, mentally. Spiritually. He'd been teaching the same classes for 2 decades. Had the same debates with students year after year. Had heard every undergraduate philosophy take 1,000 times. And somewhere along the way, he'd stopped being curious. Stopped genuinely wondering. Started just going through the motions. Teaching became performance, philosophy became job, and Leonard became exactly what he'd never wanted to be, a cynical academic phoning it in. His colleagues noticed. His department chair called him in for a conversation. "You seem burnt out. Have you thought about a sabbatical?" But Leonard didn't want a sabbatical. Didn't want to travel or write or research. Didn't know what he wanted except to feel something other than this numbing boredom. This feeling that he'd already thought every thought worth thinking and nothing surprised him anymore. His students noticed too. Course evaluations that used to praise his passion and engagement now said things like, "seems checked out," and "feels like he doesn't want to be there." And Leonard knew they were right, which made it worse. He was failing at the one thing he'd always been good at. But he didn't know how to fix it. Didn't know how to want to care again when caring felt impossible. His personal life was similarly flat. Divorced 10 years ago, kids grown and living out of state, no close relationships. His house near campus was full of books, thousands of them, but he hadn't read for pleasure in years. Reading had become work, something to mine for lecture material. He'd intellectualized everything until there was no joy left in anything. Fall semester, Ann Arbor turning those brilliant Michigan autumn colors. Leonard was walking home from a particularly dull lecture he'd given on Kant, could do it in his sleep at this point, basically was doing it in his sleep, when he saw a cat sitting on a fence. Not unusual, but this cat was staring at something with intense focus. Leonard followed the cat's gaze. It was watching a leaf blow across the sidewalk. Just a leaf. And this cat was completely absorbed in it. Fascinated. Like this leaf was the most interesting thing in the world. And Leonard stopped walking and watched the cat watch the leaf. And felt something he hadn't felt in years, a spark of genuine curiosity. Why was the cat so fascinated? What was it seeing that Leonard wasn't? What did the world look like through eyes that found a blowing leaf completely captivating? The cat, noticing Leonard's attention, meowed at him. Loud, demanding. Jumped down from the fence and approached, rubbing against Leonard's legs. And Leonard, who hadn't touched another living thing in weeks, bent down and petted this cat. Orange tabby, young, friendly. And the cat purred and headbutted Leonard's hand, and Leonard felt something. Interest. Connection. The tiniest crack in the numbness. The cat followed Leonard home. Just trotted along beside him for 6 blocks like they'd planned this together. Leonard tried to shoo him away. He didn't have cat supplies, didn't know anything about cats, had no business taking care of an animal when he could barely take care of himself. But the cat was persistent. Sat on Leonard's porch meowing until Leonard gave up and let him in. He fed the cat some canned tuna, gave him water, and the cat made himself at home immediately. Explored every room with that same intense focus he'd shown the leaf. Investigated bookshelves, crawled under furniture, examined corners. Everything was fascinating to this cat. Everything demanded investigation. And Leonard found himself watching, genuinely engaged for the first time in months. He named the cat Socrates. Seemed appropriate for a philosophy professor. Socrates who asked questions, who claimed to know nothing, who approached the world with wonder. This cat embodied that. Everything was new. Everything was interesting. Everything deserved investigation. Here's what happened: Socrates wouldn't let Leonard be bored. Would knock books off shelves until Leonard engaged. Would bring Leonard toys, a bottle cap, a twist tie, random objects that Socrates found fascinating, and demand that Leonard investigate them too. Would stare at things until Leonard looked too, trying to see what Socrates saw. Was basically a tiny orange philosophy professor teaching Leonard his own subject. Leonard started noticing things again. Really noticing. The way light came through his windows at different times of day. The sound of wind in trees. The texture of different surfaces. All the things he'd stopped paying attention to because familiarity had made them invisible. Socrates made them visible again. Made them worthy of attention. Made them interesting. He started reading differently. Not mining for lecture material, but actually engaging with texts. Would read philosophy with Socrates in his lap, and somehow having this small creature there made Leonard slow down. Made him actually think about the words instead of just processing them. Made him ask real questions instead of rhetorical ones. His teaching changed. Started bringing genuine questions to class instead of just presenting answers. Started admitting when he didn't know something instead of pretending omniscience. Started engaging with student ideas as actual ideas instead of just undergraduate confusions to correct. And his students responded. Course evaluations improved dramatically. Students stayed after class to continue discussions. The energy changed. Leonard started a philosophy salon at his house. Bi-weekly meetings, open to anyone interested in genuine philosophical exploration. No academic posturing, no defending positions, just curiosity and questions. Socrates would attend, would sit on laps, would occasionally contribute loud meows at particularly heated moments. And the salon grew. Faculty and students and community members all showing up to wonder together. To not know together. To be curious together. About a year after getting Socrates, Leonard published a paper that actually mattered to him. About wonder as philosophical method. About cynicism as the death of philosophy. About learning curiosity from a cat who found bottle caps fascinating. It was personal in ways his academic writing had never been. Vulnerable. And it resonated. Got more attention than anything he'd published in years. Leonard is 55 now. Socrates is too. They have their routines: morning coffee while Socrates investigates the backyard through their window, evening reading while Socrates naps, night walks around the neighborhood with Socrates following. And through it all, Leonard is rediscovering wonder. Not manufactured, not performed, but genuine. The kind that makes philosophy worth doing. Here's what Leonard told me: I thought I'd thought everything worth thinking. That I'd asked all the important questions already. But Socrates showed me I'd stopped asking questions entirely. I was just recycling answers. Real philosophy, real thinking, it requires wonder. Requires approaching everything like you've never seen it before. Like a leaf blowing across the sidewalk might be the most interesting thing in the world. Because maybe it is. Maybe I just forgot to look. That's what cynicism does, it makes you stop looking. Stop wondering. Stop being genuinely curious because you've decided you already know. And maybe you do know some things. But there's always more to see, more to notice, more to wonder about. If you're willing to look with fresh eyes. So here's my question for you: what have you stopped being curious about? What have you decided you already know? What would it take to approach the world like you've never seen it before? For Leonard, it was a cat fascinated by a leaf. What might wake up your curiosity? Drop your story in the comments. Tell me about rediscovering wonder. Tell me about cats who taught you to look again. Tell me about finding curiosity after cynicism. Someone reading this has stopped asking questions, thinks they've seen everything, and they need to hear that there's always more to see. Always more to wonder about. Always more to discover. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hit that like button if Leonard's story resonated, subscribe for more tales of orange cats teaching philosophy, and tonight, look at something ordinary like you've never seen it before. Really look. See what you've been missing. Your inner Socrates is waiting. Until next time, remember, wonder isn't childish. It's essential. And it's always available if you're willing to see. Me for now.